Hello and welcome to a brand new episode brought to you on the Four-Eyed Radio Network. If you want to see more shows, check out foureyedradio.com, Sorry about that.
Hey there, Eric here from Socially Awkward Studios, and this Four-Eyed Radio presentation is being proudly brought to you by Raven Designs, illustration and design that fit your personality. For samples and inquiries, visit ravencruise.com.
Bond. James Bond. Shaken, not stirred.
Utter one more syllable and I'll have you killed.
I thought Christmas only comes once a year.
For your eyes only, darling.
I never joke about my web 007.
For England, James?
Come in, Univex. James Bond here.
Am I going to have a problem with you, Bond?
Allow me to introduce myself.
You're that secret agent! That English secret agent from England!
No, you're cleverer than you look.
Still better than looking cleverer than you are.
My God, what's Bond doing?
I think he's attempting re-entry, sir.
007 reporting for duty.
Hello, the name's Berkeley, Ziggy Berkeley from Cinema on the Rocks, and with me is Eric Dewey from Socially Awkward Studios, and you are listening to Her Majesty's Secret Podcast, only on the Four-Eyed Radio Network. That's right, this is the show where we discuss all things James Bond 007. And this episode, we're going to be discussing henchmen, Bond henchmen, evil henchmen, villainous henchmen, nasty henchmen, dial-a-henchmen.
That's right. Sometimes a villain needs a little help. He needs somebody to back him up or to be the first one to run into the fray and die. But either way, you always need some backup, whether you're on the side of light and justice or whether you're on the side of darkness and evil. But we're going to talk about the latter here today. We're going to talk about the baddies, but not the main villains, specifically the hench-people. Not just the henchmen. We're not sexist here. We're not excluding anybody. We're talking about the hench-people.
That's right. And we're also going to be announcing the winner of our Dial-a-Henchman contest.
Ooh.
Now, for those of you who don't recall how this goes, or how we came up with the name, after James Bond takes out the henchman Cha in Moonraker, the evil Hugo Drax called a mysterious telephone number to find a replacement. I personally have taken to calling this number Dial-a-Henchman, because, come on, that's just kind of cool. Wouldn't you want to dial a henchman? Wouldn't that be the greatest service ever? Just pick up the phone, call a number, hi, Dial-a-Henchman? So we thought, who would you ask for if you dialed a henchman? And so we started the conversation, hello, dial a henchman? That insufferable Mr. Bond took out my top enforcer this afternoon, and I shall be in need of a replacement. And then we invited you, our listeners, to, in 77 words or less, finish off your side of that conversation. And we got many, many interesting responses, a couple of which made us wonder if people had ever heard the show before. However, we got several that were excellent, including our standout winner, which we will be revealing momentarily. But first, we also had some runners-up and honorable mentions we'd like to read out over the air as well. We can't read all of the entries. We got quite a few. However, there are some that we thought deserved some special mention.
Absolutely. And the first response we want to go ahead and read is actually an international submission. We got a good friend of the show and listener. I'm hoping we're not pronouncing this incorrectly, but we think it's Teal from Delft in the Netherlands. And he gave us a great response. It was a little bit over the word count, unfortunately, by almost double. So
unfortunately, it's officially disqualified. But we liked it so much we wanted to read it anyway.
It's a great answer, so we do want to go ahead and read it. All right. So Teal said, "Good. Listen up. My latest henchman just died, so I'll need a replacement. What kind, you ask? Well, the same as always. Blonde, tall, strong, the silent type. Yes, I know I've had 5 of those already. Grant, Hans, Mr. Stamper, Heinrich Kreigler, Necros. I know. Well, maybe not blonde then. Just tall, strong, and silent. What about Jaws? I see. No, I will not pay to get him down from outer space. Gobinda? No. How about Vargas? I see. So maybe not the silent type. What about Tee-Hee Johnson? Dropped out of a fast-moving train, you say? Well, what else have you got that comes close to being blonde, tall, strong, and the silent type? Knick-knack? Oh, well, it'll have to do."
Knick-knack's always what I think of when I hear of, tall, blonde, silent,
It's pretty much dead on. I mean, yeah, he fits the profile perfectly.
So, yeah. And moving on to our 2 official runners-up. The first one is from Dean in North Bay, Ontario. And his answer was, okay, I need a henchman immediately. Everything is going to shit. My lair is on fire. My moon laser is malfunctioning. I need one that is impervious to bullets, fires, explosions, poison, and sharks. Do you have any immortal henchmen? I think that would be a beneficial trait. I know that Henchmen Are Us has a 2-for-1 special. Do you guys offer anything like that? Yes, I'll take the 5 for the price of a giant deal.
I like the immortal, and it has to be impervious to sharks. Very important, especially in our world, because that sharks are going to come into play at some point, and not just for jumping.
And 5 for the price of a giant. That was really creative. So, Dean, hats off to you, man.
Thank you very much, Dean, for your entry. We appreciate it. All right, our next runner-up comes from Chris in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And this one's great. Here we go. Dial a henchman, I have a wicked request, so please do work quickly at my behest. I'm in need of one creature to dispose of a spy, and one to seduce him. He's that kind of guy. They'll need to be tricky, quite cunning and sly, so whomever you choose, just send me your best. I'll prefer suits of red, wild hair, and blue. Just go on and fetch me, thing 1 and thing 2. Woohoo! Little Dr. Seussy action going on there. I loved it. Absolutely fantastic. So thank you very much, Chris, from Minneapolis. We appreciate your entry as well.
Yes, thank you very much, Chris. And now, moving on to our winner, and this was a very difficult choice, I have to say, but just once I read this one, it was really, really hard to think of anything else, and Eric and I talked about it, and we decided, yes, this was going to be our winner. So congratulations to Zach from Longmont, Colorado, who came up with this entry. Yes, I have this Groupon for rent 1 henchman, get 1 free. Oh, it expired 6 months ago? Well, can you still honor it? No! But I paid in bricks of gold, you impetuous fool! You will honor my Groupon! Or... Well then, I'd like to rent 1 henchman, please. Purpose? To find and kill you. Hello? I seem to have lost connection. Are you still there?
It was just a fantastic response. I reached out to Zach and let him know that he had won. He agreed to keep it quiet until this episode is released. So, Zach, you are officially released from your non-disclosure and can feel free to tell the world of your wonderful, amazing win. Hopefully you should have, by the time this comes out, you should have received your prize already. And hopefully we'll have a picture of you with your prize to post up along with this episode. So thanks to everybody who entered. We really appreciate you guys, conversing with us and responding to our request that you enter our contest. And a lot of great thought went into it, and fantastic to see that.
Yes, it was really, really great reading these entries, and in case you missed what Zach won a copy of James Bond, 50 Years of Movie Posters. That was the book that we used as our reference material for the posters of 007 episode. It is a fantastic book, so Zach, I hope you really do enjoy it, and once again, thank you for your entry, and thank you to everyone. We really appreciate hearing from our fans all over the world, and that was something that we also really enjoyed seeing, was that we didn't just have entries from the United States or even just from North America. We had from everywhere. So everyone all over the world, thank you, merci. We really appreciate all of these entries that have come in. And we will be having some other contests other times in the future, so don't worry, you can win next time.
Yay!
But this brings us to our own choices for the Henchman of 007. We went for the top 25 and the bottom 007. And as we have been using as our standard for the list from the films, we are going with the 23 official Eon films and Never Say Never Again as our source material. And of course, some films have very few henchmen, and some films have zillions of henchmen. So it was just basically a free-for-all. Not every film need be represented in our lists, and some films may be represented several times. And as always, Eric and I have not seen each other's lists beforehand, nor have we discussed them. So this should be an interesting... I think this one's going to be all over the map.
Yeah, I'm very much doubting. I think if there's any matches, especially specific place matches, it's going to be purely coincidental more than anything else, because I have a feeling that these lists are going to be just completely different. The only caveat to that I would say is that I think that we both there's probably a couple that we both have fairly high up on the list, I would think, maybe, but other than that, it could be anybody's guess.
If I'm going to make any prediction at all, I think that our top 3 places will have the same people, but I don't know that they will be in the same order. That's going to be my guess. I could be completely wrong, but that's my guess. And the only other prediction I'll make is I think there's one hench person who will be on both of our bottom lists, but I have no idea where.
Oh, okay.
But there's one person I'm absolutely sure will be on both of them. And part of the interesting thing in coming up with these lists is deciding who a henchman is. Because I have seen lists that are very, very strict about who they say a henchman is, and some that basically anyone who ever even thought about being a bad guy for about 5 seconds who wasn't the main villain was a henchman. And some of those, the criteria were just way too broad. And so I lean more toward the side that pared down the list a bit. Now, I'll admit, occasionally I went way off the map, because as host of the show, I reserve the right to be a partial hypocrite, because that's what we do.
Yeah, it works out. It works out well for us.
Yeah, that's just one of the benefits of running the show yourself. But shall we start with our bottom 007 henchman?
Let's do that.
All right, so who did you have as your bottom 007?
In my bottom 007, now I will say that this list was a little bit harder for me to compile than my top list even, because for me, the worst henchmen are the ones that you don't even remember. They weren't even memorable enough to make a list. So to me, worst is kind of a relative term, because they have to be memorable enough that I recall them, but also not good. And and some of the people that I picked for the best are not good, but they're just so memorable that they made my list. So it's kind of, I really have a feeling this one's going to be the really hypocritical list here. And
I think that we had very different criteria. Just call it a guess.
It's very, very possible. So I went with, and quite honestly, my bottom 7, they're not even in that strict of an order, to be honest, because they're all pretty much equal in my mind. They're not really, there isn't one that's so much more worse than the others that has to be number 1. I did attempt to rank them as best I could, but for me, they were all like pretty much just clumped right there together. So the one I did choose, though, as my number 7 in the bottom henchman list is Rosie Carver from Die Another Day.
Are you sure that's the movie she was from?
Oh, Live and Let Die.
Wow.
I don't know how to type is what I have.
Call Dial a Henchman just to have them slap you around for daring to mix up those two movies. Wow.
Wow, that was rough. Yes.
Wow.
You know what happened? I reordered my list, and it didn't reorder all of the. I'm just like, do. Okay, I see what happened here. Let me.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to send Eric a virtual bitch slap, you can get to him on Twitter at Eric J. Dewey. You can also email him at eric@foureyedradio.com. Or if you would like to send me anything for some reason, you can find me on Twitter at CinemaOTR, and you can email me at ziggy@cinemaontherocks.com.
So, Rosie Carver from Live and Let Die is who I meant to say. I was all over I fixed my list, hopefully. Hopefully that'll be the only one. Getting off to a real great start here. Yeah, for me, she was just kind of a bumbling idiot, and she was memorable enough because of that, but she didn't, she wasn't a bumbling idiot in the, haha, that's funny, at least we got some humor way. She was just not good. So that's why she's on this list.
I cannot fault the fact that she's on there. I almost put her on the list. In fact, she was about my number 8. But the criteria I ended up going with mostly are extreme disappointment, horrible casting, badly written. I have one on here who made me actively angry, and then we have at least four of them who are just effing stupid. So that was my criteria.
All right.
And while Rosie made me angry in terms of, God, what a stupid character, she at least there was something to her writing that kept her from making it to the bottom 7. So my number 7, who actually is from Die Another Day, I promise, is Zhao.
Okay.
Because just what a waste.
You can already tell these are going to be this is going to be an interesting list all the way up and down both lists. All right.
I have a feeling it will be.
So Zhao.
No, go on.
No, we'll talk about some more about Zhao later. I'll give you my thoughts on Zhao. It's gonna be a little while.
I imagine it is, just based on hearing you say that, and that frightens me, considering the esteem with which I know we both hold this movie.
I didn't base it on how much I enjoyed the movie that these characters came from. We'll get to it, but let's hear more about why Zhao made your bottom 7.
Basically because he was just such a disappointment to me. He was just totally generic. I thought the shtick they came up with for him was just dumb. A guy who got stuck halfway between the turning from an Asian guy to a white man at the, let's make you a honky DNA clinic, which we've already made fun of at length. And he's got diamonds stuck in his face. Why? I mean, you're turning him into a white man. Can you therefore not pick rocks out of his face? I mean, is road rash something we can't deal with? I've known people in motorcycle accidents who've gotten it much worse. And beyond that, Zhao just didn't strike me as very effective. He was a completely generic, utterly forgettable guy. I mean, yeah, he drove in an interesting car chase, but that was the car. The cars that he was driving. The car was cool, not Zhao himself. And so I just thought he was a complete waste of potential and utterly bleh. So that is why Zhao made number 7 on my bottom 007 henchman list.
All right, fair enough. We'll talk more about Zhao a little bit later. But that's why these lists are so fun, because they're so subjective, and what makes a great character for one person makes a horrible character for another, and what makes them, some might think it's a mediocre character, might be a great character or a horrible character to some. So it's fantastic. So moving on to number 6. Who do you have at number 6 on your bottom list?
For number 6, we jump into the just effing stupid category. And we go for another person whose primary physical characteristic involves too much bling, and that would be Mr. Bullion from The World Is Not Enough, played by Goldie. All right. And his main distinguishing characteristic, of course, is the gigantic gold teeth he has. And
which,
beyond
unlike
that,
another henchman who we might talk about later, these don't serve a purpose.
Yeah, this is just bling. I mean, if he was using these for some kind of, menacing purpose, which would be kind of hard, considering that gold is a very malleable metal, not necessarily known for standing up to high pressures. This is just bling. And the character himself is kind of a bumbling idiot and a coward.
And a traitor.
Just very much emblematic of the overall failure and waste of potential that is the end of the Pierce Brosnan era. So, in fact, I'm noticing that there's a trend here in some of this bottom list. But anyway, so Mr. Bullion just struck me as so incredibly stupid from concept to actually the way that we see him on the screen, that I had to put him as number 6 in my list of bottom 007 henchmen.
All right. Well, you remember that prediction I made that we were not going to have any matches on the list? We blew that out of the water pretty quick.
Gold teeth on that?
I'm glad I didn't bet any menacing gold teeth on that, because my number 6 on my bottom 007 list is Mr. Bullion from The World Is Not Enough. He would have probably fallen off of the list completely, just not been ignored, if it weren't for the fact that he turned coat on his supposed boss. I never like that. And, as soon as you show disloyalty to your boss for another bad guy, No, that's a bad henchman. Bad, naughty henchman. He got what was coming to him for that, but yeah.
And besides, he turned on Robbie Coltrane. Come on, man.
That's
He's
messed
cool.
up. So, but he got his in the end, so that's good news. But yeah, I definitely agree. It was just a completely unnecessary character, and in all ways, just a bad choice.
So who did you have for your number 5 on your bottom list?
Moving up to number 5 on my bottom list, and this, again, they're all kind of grouped close together for me, so it's not like, there's a huge difference. The one I went with for number 5 is actually from Casino Royale. I went with Alex Dimitrios.
Really?
Yes, because as a henchman goes, he was so very ineffective. I mean, he shows up and he got nothing accomplished. He got himself he gave away his car, he gave away his wife. I mean, he did nothing. So,
to be fair, he got one thing accomplished. He managed to get things over to the guy who was eventually going to be the Mad Bomber.
Okay.
He did make that exchange.
Oh, that's right. He did get the one. Okay, so he wasn't a complete loser. But other than that, basically his purpose in the movie is to give Bond a car and a girl. And other than that, I just didn't like the character that much. Like, he came off as just kind of blah. In an otherwise fantastic movie, that character just kind of stood out to me as not being fantastic, so... Not enough to hurt the movie, and like I said, these are all kind of grouped close together for me. So, but yeah, I didn't like him.
All right, I did not have him on either of my lists. I would say that for me, he fits closer to the upper range of the didn't have him on my list than the lower range of didn't have him on my list. Now, part of that is because I have an appreciation for where his name comes from. There is a relatively obscure but outstanding piece of film noir called The Mask of Dimitrios, starring Peter Lorre and Sidney Greenstreet. And Dimitrios is basically this turncoat mercenary espionage type character. And this takes place during the era of World War II. So it's just a really, really neat piece of noir. And I would be very surprised if the name is not an homage to that, because it's a kind of movie that film people tend to know. And people who are really into noir, which is the category I fall into, really seem to know. But it's something that generally you only see making the rounds when Ted Turner brings it out of the vault for a walk every couple of years. But so I like that. And yeah, he was greasy, but he was greasy in the way that I like to see the henchman. I mean, I don't have to like the henchman. In fact, if I don't really like him, I should have a reason to not like him. And he struck me as the kind of person I absolutely couldn't like. And so he was effective for me.
All right, fair enough.
But I understand your reasoning. I'm not faulting you for it. So, unlike the way that you seem to feel about my opinion of Zhao.
We'll get there. I don't fault you for your opinion at all. And like I said, this one is such a tough category because, I mean, the defining characteristic of most Bond henchmen is their inability to get anything accomplished. So it's really a fine line to walk between saying, oh, this guy's an idiot, and this guy's cool, although he also didn't get anything accomplished. So it's a real fine line to walk, and a very
It's almost like picking your favorite stormtrooper.
Exactly. Like, oh, yeah, I like that TK-135 or whatever it was, but that other guy...
TK-421, why aren't you at your post?
Yeah, no, TK-421 was cool. Don't knock him. Yeah, so it's all right. It's okay. It's okay that you don't agree. I'll just go cry in the corner.
And while you're crying in the corner, I will move on to my number 5. And my number 5 fits into several categories. Poorly cast. I mean, just absolutely poorly cast, to the point where the person who was cast doesn't even fit the type that was the original idea for who the character was supposed to be. Not very well played, and just overall a bad character given a bad shtick. And continuing with my theme at the moment of the failures of the Pierce Brosnan era, I'm going with Sanjay Gupta from Tomorrow Never Dies, played by magician Ricky Jay, who is known mostly for card tricks. In fact, he has distinguished himself for some really fantabulous work with cards, including being able to use them as weapons. He can throw them that fast. In fact, they were thinking about integrating that into the film. They did not. And instead, the only reference you get him to being a magician is when he's asked if the rocket is ready. He says, press the magic button, and Beijing disappears. I just don't get why he was cast in this film, and Gupta is just kind of a washed-up loser in the movie. He was originally supposed to be this young East Indian whiz kid, hence the East Indian name. Mm-hmm. But then, inexplicably, this happened, and just, I did not like this character at all. Just totally rubbed me the wrong way, and just seemed like, okay, so we have this washed up why? It just didn't make any sense. So Sanjay Gupta, Tomorrow Never Dies, is my number 5.
I can definitely agree with that. He was one that didn't even stand out enough in my mind to think about when I was creating my lists. So, had I thought about him, he could have made the bottom list, but honestly, he wasn't memorable enough to even make the process of making my lists.
Fair enough.
That's kind of how that happened. But hey, but that's so at least it's not something that we're going to be, oh, that's my number 2. What are you talking about? Oh, no. So moving on, I guess we're up to number 4 already on the bottom list, are we not?
We are, and I think my number 4 is also going to be on your list somewhere.
Oh.
I do not expect this person to be on your top list. I will be sorely disappointed if this person is.
Okay.
This is the one on the list who made me actively angry every time the character appeared on the screen.
Okay.
We've discussed this character before, actually, on a previous list. Just zero screen chemistry with anyone who appeared alongside. Did not do a good job in any aspect of the film, either as an effective hench person or as an effective portrayal. We are, of course, talking about Mayday, played by Grace Jones in A View to a Kill. She's just okay. All she was, pardon the characterization, but that's basically what they turned her into, tall, black, and scary. That's all she was. She didn't, as a hench person, she really didn't do much. I mean, yes, okay, she killed the person at the Eiffel Tower, and then she did her jump, but just overall, for the amount of presence she had in the film, for the amount of screen real estate she wasted, she was statuary, and she was not good statuary. I just did not like her at all. So my number 4 in the bottom 007 henchman list is Mayday from A View to a Kill.
All right. Well, I can't fault your reasoning, and I will say that we will talk about Mayday a little bit later. But we'll get there when we get there, I suppose. Some of the reasons that we'll go back over some of the same reasons actually, and but I use them a little differently, perhaps. So we'll get there.
Like you said, I think this is the most subjective list we've ever done.
Oh, absolutely.
Even more so than the poster art.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because this is, just absolutely. Again, with the henchmen, they all fit into this category. And how do you define a good henchman? Technically, a good henchman is somebody who actually got the job done. But if any of them actually did get the job done, well, Bond would be dead and the series would be over. So we have to count on them not getting the job done. So how do we?
At which point, Moneypenny is one of the most effective henchmen out there.
So yeah, it's kind of it's very, very subjective, but it's a fun discussion. So we'll talk about Mayday a little bit more later. But for my number 4 on my bottom 007 list, I had High Fat from The Man with the Golden Gun. I thought he was for somebody who was supposed to be this kind of big boss man, he ended up being
a fat cat.
Yeah, he ended up just being a little wussy, a little whiny. Just a little whiny witch, you know what I'm saying? And, normally if I see a hench person or a hired gun or something like that turn on their employer, I'm like, hey, I don't like that. That's not good. I don't care if you're a bad guy, yes, I get it, whatever. But if you're contracted to do a job, you do your job. But even so, when Scaramanga turned on him and shot him, I was not disappointed because I was like, yeah, he needs to go. I'm done with him.
I suspect that we're going to have an interesting discussion of hypocrisy much later in the show.
All right, okay.
Not about this character, just about this overall, feeling you have.
It's
Call this yes.
It's very possible.
With that said, I gotta say, High Fat was an effing tool. So, I'm not gonna argue. Not on my list, but I'm not gonna argue.
So that brings us up to number 3.
Indeed. So who do you have at number 3?
Cracking my top 3 in bad henchman list, I had Shady Tree from Diamonds Are Forever. I thought that character was completely unnecessary. Bad, just lame jokes. And then, seriously, you have a stand-up comedian who's part of a diamond smuggling chain, and he's just this weird old guy who's trying, I guess he's trying to be like Milton Berle or something, but he's not really pulling it off. I was thinking
somewhere between Henny Youngman and Shecky Green.
It wasn't good. And I understand that it wasn't supposed to be good, but at the same time, it would have sold it a little bit more. At least it would have gotten them, if he was a good comedian, if the jokes had made me laugh legitimately, then maybe it would have been forgettable enough to leave off this list. But as it stands, ineffective, lame jokes, and just completely unnecessary. So Shady Tree is my number 3.
Can't fault your reasoning. We'll be discussing that later.
Oh. All right.
Fair enough. From this point on my bottom list, they all fall into the just effing stupid category.
All right.
And the first one in that category, well, not the first because we've already discussed at least one, but cracking my bottom 3 is the first package deal of our lists.
Uh-oh.
And this is Bambi and Thumper from Diamonds Are Forever.
Okay. We'll be talking about them later, too. I'm not going to disagree with you that they were effing stupid. That is not my basis for any of my decisions. But let's hear yours. You were on your side of the list, so go for it.
They're completely effing stupid. They are a waste of time. Basically, all they're there to do is to show off bikini bodies while they while they pretend to beat up Sean Connery for about 90 seconds until he very easily starts drowning them in a swimming pool, and they're beaten almost immediately. I mean, they're a lame joke is what they turn out to be. Just one gigantic lame heavy thigh muscle joke. And they're just a dumb waste of time. Totally ineffective. Just dumb. So my number 3, Bambi and Thumper, who really didn't thump much in Diamonds Are Forever.
All right. Well, we'll talk about Miss Bambi and Miss Thumper a little bit later on. Not too much later on. Don't worry too much. We'll get to them fairly quickly. So that brings us up to number 2.
Yes, and my number 2 is so stupid he doesn't even deserve a name. But the fact is, he has one. And he is actually so forgettable that by some standards he could easily be left off the list. But the fact that he is a named villain, and that he is a named villain who, even though he's not the same as he was in a Fleming novel, he's a named villain who is taken from a Fleming novel in some direction. So, Shandor from The Spy Who Loved Me, who is basically a fat dude who looks one slice of pizza away from a heart attack to begin with. And who is just so lame. When you see him there, it's just like, who is this guy supposed to scare? Small children? Just completely ineffective, and then he's just being held out by his necktie. Cairo! Just lame, generic waste of time. Didn't deserve a name. If he had just been called Thug Number 1, he'd be totally off the list. But because
really,
he is a
named
thug who is actually taken from a Fleming novel, he's at number 2.
How dare you get a name, you son of a...
That's what it boils down to, yeah.
All right. I have to admit, Sandor did not make either of my lists, so
I really hope he didn't make the other one.
No, not memorable, and quite honestly, not memorable enough. It didn't even come up. My number 2, however, kind of ties in with one of the ones we've already mentioned. He's almost a henchman of a henchman, and that would be Mr. Kill from Die Another Day. For real, from Die Another Day. I'm sure of it this time. Mr. Kill had the potential. He was this big, bulky dude with the ponytail. He really had potential to be awesome, and then he just ended up being dumb and useless, and ended up, his one redeeming factor was that at least he died cool. Laser through the mouth, out the back of the head is always a cool way to die. But, other than that, this guy had nothing going for him. Plus, he served as a henchman of a henchman. He was basically Zhao's henchman, so he was like sub-henchman. But he was dumb enough to, because the biggest thing for him was that
henchman.
The biggest thing for me is that he had the potential to be cool. He had the looks, he had the physical presence to be a cool henchman, and he just didn't. So that's why he made my list. So that's my number 2.
I gotta admit, I didn't even remember him. Laser to the mouth was not cool enough for me to remember him.
You were trying to block that whole movie from your memory, so that partly had it.
Most of it, yeah. So that brings us to your number 1, I believe.
Yes. My number 1 I chose, and this is one that I just didn't like him. It's something rubbed me the wrong way, and it's hard to explain because in all other ways, this one may have been an actual decent character, a decent henchman, but for some reason, whenever I think about this particular movie, he rubs me wrong, even more wrong than the other character that we both hate from this movie. And the movie, of course, is The Living Daylights, and the character I'm talking about is Necros. Great name, great henchman name, but I just something about him, he just bugs me. And even more so, like I like Whitaker better than him, which is saying something. So it's almost unexplainable as to why. But this was the name that popped into my head the very first when I said, okay, who are the worst henchmen? Who are the people I hate the most? And this name just right there. So
I almost wish you could see me. I mean, my jaw is literally as far open as it can possibly get when you said that. And finally, we get to break out our favorite phrase from all of these lists episodes. I question your judgment, sir.
There's just something, like I said, it's intangible. It's like my dislike of Elijah Wood's face. I just can't explain it. But it's there. It's just something about him. It's like everything about him. Like, he was actually an effective character. He did his job. He did what needed to be done. But I just can't do it. I just can't. You can tell me all the reasons I'm wrong when we get to him on your list. That's one of the few downsides to that movie. Him and Whitaker, really. Otherwise, The Living Daylights is a great movie, and it's very severely underrated, I think. But him and Whitaker, the combination of the two, just great. And since we couldn't choose, since we decided to exclude Whitaker as a henchman because he played more of a actual villainous role.
Well, yeah, because he was actually the main villain.
Yeah. So, you had kind of a double take on that one. So it works. But so I didn't choose Whitaker, but he would also be on my list of annoying characters from James Bond movies if we were making one of those.
Eventually.
All right. Well, we know you disagree with my number 1 choice, but what is your number 1 choice?
My number 1 choice for bottom 007 henchman is a name you've already brought up, Shady Tree.
All right.
How bloody stupid. An insult comic. Come on, really? Even in the Diamonds Are Forever novel, which we discussed in our last episode, Shady Tree at least is respectable enough to be a bookmaker who fixes horse races. Whereas an insult comic? and a bad insult comic?
Exactly. That's the worst part. It wasn't even a good comic.
I mean, come on. I'd accept Don Rickles before this crap. And just, no. What the heck? A bad insult comic in a James Bond movie? Ow! I need liquor. So, yeah. For me, hands down, the single dumbest idea for a 007 henchman ever. And I think they're going to have a very hard time ever finding one dumber, and I hope they don't try, is Shady Tree from Diamonds Are Forever.
Challenge accepted, somebody in Hollywood is saying right now. All right. Well, I definitely can't fault you there. Like I said, that was my number 3. Same reasons. I just, not my cup of tea. Not, like I said, if he was a good comic, it would have at least had that going for him. Wouldn't have propelled him onto the good list, but at least might have kept him off of the bad list. But as it was, no, not good.
And before we move on to our good list, I do have a couple of odd, dishonorable mentions that I want to throw in.
Okay.
And not quite enough to get on the list, but just stuff that almost made it. One in particular, the one that almost made it, but I just couldn't quite justify it, even though he ended up being relatively ineffective. Milton Crest from License to Kill. I mean, Anthony Zerbe is a decent actor and all, but every time I look at this character, I just want to punch him. And I suppose that's a good quality to have in a bad guy. But I just can't stand him in this movie. I couldn't come up with enough reasons to make him make the bottom 007 list. I mean, he didn't have diamonds in his face or anything, but just guy I can't stand looking at in that movie. I mean, I don't mind him in Star Trek Insurrection for some reason, but just in License to Kill, I can't stand him. So, Milton Crest. And then another one just rubs me as ridiculous, and he's not even given a proper name. The captain of the Leparis in The Spy Who Loved Me. I just keep thinking, when did Walt Disney become a bad guy? Why did we make him up to look like Walt Disney? Because that's exactly who he looks like. And it just drives me nuts.
You're like, why?
You know exactly what I'm talking about, though, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You can see it? Evil Captain Walt Disney?
He's headed for the Matterhorn. Yeah, that did seem kind of unnecessary, but...
A pirate of the Atlantic. Da, 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 da. No, so I just had to throw those two dishonorable mentions in there. Do you have any?
No, I don't think so. I think, like I said, the ones that didn't make my list didn't make it because they were so unmemorable to me that I didn't even think of them when creating my list. So nothing that really jumps to mind. Basically, if they were memorable enough for me to think of them when I was making these lists, they probably ended up on one of them.
Fair enough. And speaking of, it's time to move on to our other list. And that would be the top 25 James Bond henchmen.
Dum, da, da, dum.
And once again, these are taken from all 23 of the official Eon productions, as well as Never Say Never Again. And there being many different hench-people from many different movies. There are some movies that may have several hench-people involved, and some that may have none at all. As you've already noticed, we've had multiple entries from movies already. Diamonds Are Forever, for example, and I can see at least one more movie that has multiple entries from me. In fact, I think it ties with the total number of entries I have from Diamonds Are Forever. But anyway.
Yeah, there were some movies that were definitely henchman heavy, and some of them in a good way, some of them in a bad way. But, so yeah, there's going to be movies that definitely have more henchman action. I noticed that it didn't have a whole lot from the newer films because they didn't have a whole lot of henchmen that were named. You had the bad guy, and then you had a whole bunch of random, unnamed underlings. But you didn't have any you didn't have that classic henchman kind of thing going. So,
which brings up a point that we did want to bring up because there's one character who is very striking in the latter-day Bond films, the Daniel Craig era, but whom you never quite get what role he plays, and so we couldn't put him on the henchman list, but we couldn't put him on the main villain list either because you just don't frickin' know. And it's kind of a shame because he really belongs near the top of either one of those lists if we could just make up our minds. And so we just want to give a quick shout out to Mr. White.
Mr. White.
From Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace. Because you never really know. Is he a hench person or is he the actual boss of Quantum? You could argue either way.
Yeah, it's not really defined. And since they kind of went away from Quantum in Skyfall, the question is, are we going to find out? Or, because we don't really know if they're going to come back around to that or not.
Especially since they bought Spectre back.
Yeah.
And it's said that they actually officially killed off Mr. White in Quantum of Solace in a scene that didn't make the theatrical cut.
Oh.
So,
yeah, of course. It's kind of like the people who argue for the stuff that happened in extended universes of various fandoms. It's like, oh no, that happened. It just didn't make it into the movie, but it happened. We're supposed to know that.
But it's just, he's a really striking character. I really like him. And part of what I like about him is the enigma, but it also makes him impossible to classify.
Yeah, you don't know if he's villain or hench person or, catalyst or what. So, hey, Mr. White, what the heck are you?
I don't think he's answering.
I was waiting. I was like, nope. I thought he might jump on for a moment. All right, so want to go ahead and jump into our top 25 Bond henchman lists?
All right. So, for my number 25, I went with Helga Brandt from You Only Live Twice.
All right.
She stands out for me as an interesting, effective, femme fatale type hench person until we get to the point where she has Bond captured right where she wants him. She's got the instruments of torture ready. And she's like, all right, I can slice you open. On the other hand, bow, chicka, wow, wow. She decides to go for it.
She's like,
for which, of course, she's eventually fed to piranhas.
Well, yeah, exactly.
But up until that point, she just struck me as an interesting character, and just I like the femme fatale hench person. That's an archetype that I think really works, and to me, it actually is one that makes the most sense. Just because for either gender, I think that type of personality has the biggest chance of making someone lower their guard and become trusting, and then here comes the knife. It's just that character archetype works for me. Mm-hmm. And so I chose Helga Brandt from You Only Live Twice.
Okay. So your number 25 is Helga Brandt, You Only Live Twice. Now, my number 25, I went in an entirely different direction. I actually chose a character by the name of Helga Brandt from You Only Live Twice.
Really?
Yes, we got right off the bat. We've got another same pick. That's amazing. That like never happens. It's amazing. Yes, I had her right there on my number 25 as well. She lost some points for not being too bright and choosing making love over doing her job, but she gained points for me. I did give some points in my qualifications to how cool their death was, and eaten by piranhas. The only way to get cooler is if those piranhas had been sharks. Since they weren't, she got as close as she could possibly come. But so she made it to my my number 25 as for that reason.
All right. Yeah. See, and our list is so scattershot. There are more than twice as many number of candidates as we have slots for. So that's actually pretty impressive, especially this far down on the list. I think it's less unlikely when we get to the top because there's some pretty obvious candidates, but this far down, that's impressive.
It's amazing. So that's pretty cool.
It is. So, what's your way cool choice for number 24?
Number 24, and this is one of the rare times that I'm picking anything from this particular movie. But out of this movie, one of the few things that I did actually like, and not in this was a really great character type of way, because it really wasn't, but it was more of just a very memorable thing for me. And so I chose Fatima Blush from Never Say Never Again. I thought she was just crazy enough to be a cool henchman character. The fact that she wanted James Bond to write a letter saying that she was the best he'd ever had before killing him, just that level of nutty is perfect for a Bond villain henchman. And so I absolutely loved it. And one of the upsides, the very few upsides to that movie for me.
All right. We will be talking more about her later.
Okay. All right.
But I'm impressed that you could actually bring yourself to mention something good about that movie. I think we've made a breakthrough here. All right, so I think that brings us to my number 24. And for my number 24, I was actually kind of surprised because I remember initially being rubbed the wrong way by the existence of this character. But the fact is that he's portrayed so well that even though the script, as far as how it plays in the scene that he's in, is just remarkably dumb and played off as a bad joke, he's memorable, he's played very well, and even though he doesn't quite get the job done, he just really stuck out for me. And so I'm choosing Dr. Kaufman from Tomorrow Never Dies as my number 24.
I can say that we will talk a little bit more about Dr. Kaufman quite a bit later in the show. But
interesting.
Yes, I definitely cannot fault any of your reasons for including him on the list. I really like the character. I'm into those characters that are very focused and very into their job. Like, he's one of those characters that he loves his job. He knows what it is, and he does what he loves. And, of course, that happens to be torturing and killing people, but at least he's found his joy, you know?
He has.
So I'm okay with that.
And I like that he prides himself on professionalism, because when he's interrupted by the phone call, "Are you serious? I am very sorry. This is very embarrassing, but they need you to open the car." And the way it's written in the script is incredibly dumb. However, the performance and the way he plays it off, that's good. And I got to respect that. So that's why I had to put him as my number 24.
All right. So that brings us up to number 23.
Indeed. And this character, when I first thought of, just my initial impressions of where this list was going to go, I thought this character would end up much higher, but I just kept knocking him down and down and down until finally he ended up down here. He is one of the silent ones. In fact, he has no lines at all until he dies. But it's his physical presence, his complete lack of expression, and of course, those octagonal eyeglasses that make him so memorable. That would be Emil Leopold Locke from For Your Eyes Only.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about him.
The man whom we identify on the super sophisticated dot matrix identigraph. And because when he stands there, he looks pretty badass. But of course, he ends up dying like a little punk. But just he's got the look, walking like a man, hitting like a hammer. He's got the look. But I just couldn't put him any higher on the list. But he had to go there somewhere. So, For Your Eyes Only, Emil Leopold Locke, number 23.
All right. I can respect that choice. He didn't make any of my lists, but only because he kind of slipped my mind. Not for being immemorable, so to speak, but it just didn't come up when I was thinking about these, when I was putting together this list. So, sorry, Mr. Locke, I forgot you.
Well, you wouldn't forget him if you had that dot matrix picture from the identigraph on your
Oh, I know. I'd love to get that. That would be a great original prop to have, huh? Just that piece of paper.
It would, actually. So who do you have at number 23?
Moving up to my number 23. This is the one spot on my list that I didn't know because there were some specific things that you said you weren't including that I was like, mostly not including those types either. However, this one I did include, and that is Pussy Galore from Goldfinger. Yes, I know she ends up turning good in the end. That's fine. Whatever. That's great. That's good for her. But she's most definitely a henchman at the beginning. She is the bad guy's personal pilot and the commander of the flying circus, which is going to be used to kill hundreds of thousands of people. So the reason she's so low on the list is because she did turncoat, and even though it was to the side of righteousness and good, it's still, it shows a lack of character when you change sides like that. So that's what bumped her so far down on the list. But other than that, I really enjoyed the character. Obviously, it's a great character, and I went ahead and included her as a henchman because she wasn't an unwitting accomplice or anything like that. She was definitely involved, whereas with some of the others that we've discussed previously, they didn't really know that they were working for the bad guy. They didn't really realize the person they were with was the bad guy. But I think she knew. She knew what he was, and I say henchman.
While I understand all the arguments for naming Pussy Galore as a henchman, and I understand why Pussy Galore is on your list, I just could not include Pussy Galore, even though I like saying her name a lot.
I noticed.
But I understand. I really do. And out of all of the possible characters in that little Twilight Zone, she's the one who most definitely fits into the category. Because you're right. She absolutely knows what she's doing. It's not like she didn't know who the bad guy was or wasn't trapped by circumstance. Like, for example, I will not include Solitaire as a hench person because she was trapped by circumstance. She had no choice. And I'll tell you right now, which since you included Pussy Galore on your list, that may make this intriguing. If I would have gone down that road, that would have meant that I would have had no choice but to include someone else as my number one hench person who is not even on this list because of those nebulous reasons. So I'll wait through the whole list just because you did this. I want to see what happened. But then we'll discuss it later.
Okay.
Are you saying you might have done that? Ooh, interesting.
We'll see.
But I understand why you have Pussy Galore at number 23, but I just couldn't put Pussy Galore on my list.
All right. And just
So
once
who-
more for posterity, Pussy Galore.
Yes. So, who do you have on top of Pussy Galore at number 22?
On top of Pussy Galore, they would be extremely happy to be in this position, I'm sure. I chose, this is the one, we had a couple of people that we thought would be groups on the list. And this is one of a few groups I have on my list, as a matter of fact. And that is the Three Blind Mice from Dr. No. These characters are not smart. They're not good at their jobs. They failed miserably, as a matter of fact, and then died in a car crash, which is typically what happens when blind people get behind the wheel, just so you know. Yes, I know they weren't actually blind. They were just pretending to be blind for to avoid
Yes,
detection.
but according to Volkswagen,
anyway.
Stevie Wonder can tell you what color the car is.
But it's just something about those characters. I mean, it's just a fun little scene, when they come up, they're even in the credits. It's, for me, they just they're a perfect Bond henchmen. They're hired by the villain. They're bad at their job, and they're definitely memorable. And of course, dying in a fiery car crash is always a fun way to die. So they did get some points for cool death. Not a lot of points, because that is kind of a generic, in the ranks of cool ways to die, it's kind of the generic one of them. But so that's why I chose the Three Blind Mice in total. I wasn't going to give each of them a spot, especially since they weren't even named. But
All right. We'll be talking more about them later.
All right. That's good. I was afraid they weren't going to make your list at all. So that brings us to your number 22, I believe.
My number 22, a character name that got repurposed from his original use, which should tell you exactly what movie this is from. From Never Say Never Again, Lippy, who is no longer the Count, who is played by Guy Dolman in Thunderball, but instead just this big burly wrestler dude who was played by a big burly wrestler named Pat Roach, whom you may also recognize if he shaves his head as the German mechanic from Raiders of the Lost Ark. But you only see him in one scene, but damn is it memorable. The fight through the shrublands, where he's beating up Sean Connery in the hallway, and this was the clincher for me, when they're walking past the common area where all the residents are watching the TV, and he just punches Bond, and then everyone who's watching a wrestling match on TV cheers, and then he just kind of pumps himself up like, yeah. He keeps going. And then, of course, he has the spectacular death factor of being blinded by James Bond's urine and falling into a rack full of glass beakers, which then stab him to death.
As one does.
That scene is just so cool and so memorable, I had to include it.
All right. I can give you that. Like I said, I very rarely choose anything from this list from that movie, and I already had one, so I don't think it's happening again.
Hit your limit?
I've hit my limit. I've gone over. No, I honestly, I didn't think about him. I did briefly, actually, because I remembered the death. I was like, who's that guy who got James Bond's piss thrown at him? Like, that's all I remembered of him, really, was that bit, and that wasn't enough to bring him on the list for me, but I understand your reasonings, so I can go with it.
All right.
That brings us on up to numero 21.
It does indeed, and it's interesting that you put it that way. This is a character who doesn't necessarily get a lot of love, and he's not used as much as he should be. And I think that if they realized where the actor who played him was going to go with his career, they would have thought better of it. I, of course, am referring to Dario, played by a very young Benicio del Toro in License to Kill. He is the archetype of the drug cartel nasty punk henchman with the knife who's just going to talk trash at you, who's going to be ruthless, who's going to be mean. He's probably the one who killed Della Leiter. And he ends up having a wonderful death being crushed in a cocaine machine. So he's just really an effective, nasty, evil henchman. Who I think could have even been used more effectively, but even for what he is, he's just that guy you love to hate. And he's played so well by Del Toro that he just stands out for me. Absolutely. But the fact that he's not used more effectively is why he stays as low as number 21.
I will say we'll talk more about Dario a little bit later. I definitely agree with you that he was a little underused, but when he was used, it's fantastic. So we'll talk about that a little bit more a little bit later. But speaking of people that I think you might have higher on your list than I ended up with on mine, this is the one spot that I really felt like I was shocked when it ended up so low on my list. I really was. And then, I went over all my classifications, all my categorizing, everything that I decided to kind of use as my deciding factors, and I couldn't justify bumping him up any further on the list. And it's not to say that it's a bad character, because it's definitely one of my favorite henchmen and one of the funnest henchmen. And that is one of the only henchmen we see in more than one movie, as a matter of fact. It's Jaws, from The Spy Who Loved Me and from Moonraker.
Dude!
All the way down at 21, I know, crazy. I thought so too when I compiled my list, and I was like, okay, how am I going to rank these? And I ranked them, and I was like, no, there's no way, no, I must have made a mistake. And then I went back up and looked, and I classified things and reclassified, and he got bumped up a couple of spots, but not enough to get him very far up. And it's just a matter of, part of it is the fact that he does end up turning over to the side of light and good in the end, which is great for the story, but it makes him a bad henchman. It makes him bad at his job.
He pissed on the carpet.
It's a bad henchman. Bad. I'm going to roll up a newspaper and pop you on the nose with it. So I did take that into consideration.
How dare you vomit on the kitchen floor?
But I had a feeling that Jaws would make it higher up on your list. Now, the interesting thing, when I was doing some research for this episode, Jaws ends up on a lot of people's worst henchmen of Bond lists. And I can't figure that out. Like, I was shocked that he ended up as low on my best list, but I couldn't imagine putting him on a bad list.
People put him there even though I don't agree with it, simply because if you're going to take out 2 James Bond movies as parodies, those are the 2 you're taking out. But I don't agree with those people, and I question your judgment, sir.
Hey, at least it's on the good list. When we get up to number 20, you're going to really be questioning my judgment. So what did you have at number 21 then?
I already told you, Dario.
No, I'm sorry, number 20. We're moving on to number 20 is what I meant to say. And so do we want my number 20? We'll do my number 20 because...
let's do your number 20.
It's going to be an interesting discussion. My number 20 comes from one of your favorite movies. One of the movies that has so much of it set in one of your favorite locations, as a matter of fact. And I will say, I do understand all of your reasons for disliking this character. And most of those reasons are the same reasons that it ended up on my best list. And with the exception of the casting and the lack of chemistry between the actual actors, because that's something that can't be helped. But I try to look at it as a character standpoint. The character was a great henchman, I thought, and that is Mayday from A View to a Kill. She is big, black, and scary. That's a perfect thing for a henchman. You want them to be big and scary. Whatever color they happen to be, it doesn't matter. As long as they're big and scary. The fact that it's a she who is big and scary is a fun twist. It would have been much better, and she probably would have even made it much higher on my list had there been any chemistry whatsoever between Grace Jones or somebody else playing Mayday and Bond. But
thing is, I don't even think she had chemistry with Christopher Walken, and this should be impossible. There are laws of nature that says Christopher Walken makes everyone around him cool.
He hadn't quite turned that on yet. At the time A View to a Kill was filmed, he wasn't full-on Christopher Walken yet. He hadn't even reached his final form.
He was enough there.
He was getting there. And if they'd have let him go, like if they'd have just said, okay, you know what, just run with it. Just go. It would have been even that much better a movie, I think. But as it was, I'm not defending the character as a good character. I'm not defending her part in the movie as good casting or any of that. I just think the henchman character, as a hench person, she makes my list to the top because she was an effective assassin. She did have the cool leap off the Eiffel Tower. She is big and scary. And I just, as a hench person, I had to give her credit. Every other qualification, bad. But hench person, good.
I'm just going to say, maybe recast her with Corey Everson and we can talk. But I understand what you're saying. I just can't go there. I just can't stand this character. To me, the only good thing about Grace Jones as Mayday in A View to a Kill is the fact that she was cast in that role launched Dolph Lundgren's career. So, yes, I like Dolph Lundgren. What?
You want to make a federal case of it?
He can beat you up. But I understand what you're saying. I just don't agree with you. But
Fair enough.
That's
Fair
why
enough.
we have two hosts.
All right, so that brings us to your choice then. Who did you have at number 20?
Someone who I expect you to have higher on your list.
Okay.
Because you have spoken highly of this character, and I'm actually surprised he is this high on my list.
Okay.
Because I don't like him. I really don't like him. And yet, he's effective enough that I cannot, I can't bring myself to not have him on the list. But it's just, I think his character is half-baked. And so he ends up becoming too off the shelf to stand out. And that would be Mr. Stamper from Tomorrow Never Dies.
All right. I think your statement so far are fair and correct as far as, yes, he is higher on my list. Not tremendously. Not, we're not talking crazy high, but...
And he's reasonably effective. He even holds his own right up through his last fight. He does not die like a punk. And so he gets a cool death factor even. But his character is just so half-baked, and the actor playing him, Guts Otto, he sits there, he plays it in a very generic mode. Mm-hmm. So even though he's big, blonde, and scary, he's also surprisingly forgettable for someone who's built like, generically speaking, a brick shithouse. I mean, he's just there. So effective as he is, he's just too generic for me to go any higher, but he's effective enough, even though the character's half-baked and the portrayal is just kind of there, that he has to at least make number 20 for me.
Okay. Like I said, he is higher on my list. We'll get there when we get there. It's not a huge step up, but enough that I would say I mildly question your judgment, just a little bit, but not enough to really make a big case of it.
Fair enough.
It brings us up to number 19, I believe.
It does. And for number 19, something we've brought up already, not just the first henchman we see in the official Eon 007 series, but the first characters we see at all in the official Eon 007 series. And those are the three blind mice. There they go. Three blind mice. There they go. Yes, the three blind mice. Just because... like you said, they're cool. And they do get some of the job done. They commit the very first assassination that we see. Yeah, they screw up when they're trying to kill Bond more than once. But I do have to give some historical credit because they are the very first characters you ever see. So that's one thing. But also, they've got personality. They don't say anything, but they've got personality. And I like that. So, the three blind mice, number 19, from Dr. No.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, that not too much higher than mine, but definitely right there with with this group. Definitely need to get counted because they're cool.
So, who do you have at number 19, sir?
My number 19 comes from another one of our much maligned movies, one of the ones that we like to make fun of just a little bit. You love the chicken. And that's Irma Bunt on Her Majesty's Secret Service. Of all the characters in this film, she is the one, to me, that stands out, even more so than Blofeld, as being true to her character the entire time. She knows what her job is. She knows what she's got to do, and she does it. So I'm okay with her, and she's kind of one of the standouts of that movie, other than, of course, Diana. Excuse me. Oh, gosh. I just got something caught in my throat there.
Chicken.
maybe that's what it is.
Chicken.
So one of the few standouts of that movie. So I will I'll give her credit and say that I like her as a hench person, a person of hench descent.
Well, as far as that goes, one, I'll just note that the fact that we did not include sharks as hench-people, and therefore we couldn't include any animals, means that we could not include chickens as henchmen. Otherwise, since they were going to be used to kill people in England, but no. I did not include Irma Bunt on my list, which kind of surprised me. In fact, as I went through the list, she made it at number 26, and on another version, she made it at 27. The other version has a character taken off, which we'll discuss later. To me, Irma Bunt has one major quality in her favor, and I say that in evil terms, which is she kills Bond's wife. But beyond that, she just struck me as such a generic character who actually didn't do anything. She was just the stereotypical closeted lesbian hag. And she didn't even hit the level of women in prison warden stereotype. She was just an unpleasant person who didn't really do anything except be mean to girls and kind of look like she wishes she could get one drunk. And I didn't like the character. I didn't like how the character was played. I think that maybe if someone else had played her or the direction had been a little different, she could have been effective, but I just couldn't put her on my list.
All right, I'll accept that. Like I said, it was kind of one of those things that looking at it, I don't know if maybe it's because she stood out as being a little bit better than some of the other characters in that particular film, that maybe that's why she propelled as high on my list as she did. But I can't disagree with anything that you just said either. So, all right, it's on my list, but maybe it shouldn't be. I don't know. If I were to redo the list, taking into almost all of these lists that we've done, going back and thinking about it, if I were to do the list again after the show, after getting your input on it and everything, my list would probably be drastically different almost every time.
Yeah, I find these lists fluid things. That's why on my review site, I have a top 18 list. It took me forever to come up with that number, by the way, so don't knock it. My thing is, I change it every 2 years. I'm going to change it again this year because the list is fluid. Whatever I come up with as my top list now is not going to be the same way I feel about it even 6 months from now. So 2 years is a stretch. So, and with the list we're coming up with here, I can already think of some of the lists we've already done where there are tweaks I would make and some complete changes I would make. So, yeah, these are fluid. These are very much, snapshots in time. So I get it.
All right. So that brings us up to number 18, I believe.
It does. So who did you have in that slot, sir?
At my number 18, it's a pair of characters that have already been mentioned. My favorite Disney-theme named useless assassins, but still so much fun. Bambi and Thumper. I did group them together. They obviously didn't deserve their own spot each individually. They are a combo deal, so to speak. But yes, they're ineffective. Yes, they're dumb. Yes, it's basically a joke in the middle of the movie. But if any movie needed a joke in the middle of it, this is one that does.
How is Diamonds Are Forever not a joke? The entire movie. How is it not a joke?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's like you almost need something to break up the. You're like, is this for real?
How do you need a joke to break up a joke?
No, there we go. Exactly. Because you're trying to take it seriously, and then you need something to remind you, no, don't take this seriously. Don't, because that'll only lead to bad decisions. I liked Bambi and Thumper. I thought they were just a fun little segue in the middle. Yes, they did lose definite points because, first of all, they didn't die. They just got arrested, whatever. They were so very easily subdued by Bond, but he at least had the good sense to get them in the water so that we got to see them wet before he did that. So, hey, good news there. So I'm okay with Bambi and Thumper's inclusion in the movie, and I even think of them. Again, a lot of this came down to pure memorability, I guess. Is that even a word? I don't know. But
I would say it is. And that's where a lot of mine went to, so I understand. You're going to question a lot of my decisions later on, so I understand.
That's all right. That's the whole point. But so that is my number 18. I went with Bambi and Thumper from Diamonds Are Forever.
All right. My number 18, I was actually kind of surprised the person made it this high on the list. I mean, he had to make it on the list somewhere because for a while, at least, he was effective. And in fact, he was the catalyst for our Dial-A-Henchman contest. And that would be Cha from Moonraker. Yes, he is a complete stereotype. I mean, he is the absolute Asian dude in generic clothing with the yellow sash stereotype. And his main line that you remember him for is, "Da! Go!" as he's swinging the kendo stick in the middle of the glass factory. But if you're going to play a generic stereotype, then just go for the gusto. And he does. So I can respect that. Cha at least goes for it. And it's not just in the martial arts sequences. He's also got the slimy look when he turns up the dial on the centrifuge so Bond can have the heart attack until we see the flashback pictures of the horse's butt. And Cha is actually good at his job. And he gives Bond a run for his money in the fight in the glass factory and then above the clock tower. And hey, he's got a really awesome death. He plunges through a glass clock onto a dinner table. I mean, come on. Or was it the opera performance he fell into? They were right next to each other. But anyway, Cha, my number 18 from Moonraker.
All right. I did not include him in my list, although it did briefly come up when I did remember him. It just, for some reason, when I was doing the final compiling of the list, I don't think it made it. And I'm not sure why, actually, because now that you've talked about it, see, this is another one. I'm like, oh man, if I'd have given that one a little more thought, it probably would have made the list. Darn it. So no, I definitely can't fault you for that choice. Good call there.
All right.
So
that brings us to our number 17 spot.
Ooh, numero 17. For my number 17, I had a character that, and it's kind of funny that I actually have a couple from this movie, even though I'm not the biggest fan of this movie. But yet I do have a couple of characters from this movie on my list. And this is one that I felt I gave him points just for being underappreciated. I felt that he was a better, smarter character than he was even given credit for by his own boss. And that is Vlad, or Vladimir Popov, from Die Another Day. He was the smart one. He was the one who actually created the Ice Dragster and the Icarus space program. He was actually the brains behind everything.
I don't even remember that dude.
He was this goofy looking dude with like this weird shaggy bowl cut. And basically he was just, Gustav Graves was just incredibly rude to him. But he was the one who like did everything. Like when he broke the thing, he's like, fix it. And he's like, yes sir, yes sir. But at the same time, I'm just like, oh, that poor guy. Oh man. He made all these things. I mean, it's like with Q, you get, him and Bond, back and forth. This was more like, he's just Graves is just laying into him, just like whatever, and he's just like taking it, and I'm just like, don't, dude, don't. You're underappreciated. You could beat them. You could be the guy with the stapler in the basement. I could bring the building down. For some reason, he just stuck in my mind, and I was like, you know what, Vlad? I'm giving you your moment in the sun. So this is it. Number 17 on my list. It's your moment in the sun.
Awesome. I don't even remember him, so I understand that he probably needs that moment in the sun. Now, for me, my number 17 is someone whom everyone definitely remembers. You may be surprised at how low this person is on my list, but I could only go so far. And that is From Russia with Love, Rosa Klebb.
Okay.
The former agent of SMERSH, who is now working for Spectre. Now, to be fair, she defected before the movie started, so you can't really hold that against her. In the movie, she stays totally loyal to Spectre, and while, much like Erba Bunt, she is written, in fact, as the not even closeted lesbian hag stereotype. I mean, she's definitely there, but she also manages to be something beyond that stereotype and be a real individual character as well. And she goes for it, and she even, you wouldn't think that looking at her, she'd be able to hold off Sean Connery in a fight, but Dagger Shoe, come on. And
the Dagger Shoe is awesome.
And she also definitely has the air of nasty command when she's talking to Tatiana, pretending to still be a Soviet agent. So, yeah, Rosa Klebb from Russia with Love is my number 17.
All right. Yeah, definitely can't fault your choice there. I will say we'll talk about her again fairly soon. Not immediately, but in the near future, we'll talk about her again.
Now, my number 16, I'm actually kind of surprised at how high this individual was at some point, and yet I've also been surprised in other instances at how low this individual made it. So I guess this is exactly where the person needed to be, even though you may have to look down to find him. That would be Nick Nack
from
The Man with the Golden Gun.
That's another one that I came across quite often on lists of the worst Bond henchmen, and I could not figure out why. I'm like, he's so brilliantly memorable. Yes, he is, a bit of a stereotype, just a little one, but but still, it's a great character. I am kind of surprised that it's as low on your list as it is. I will say we'll talk about Nick Nack some more, closer to the end of the episode. That's all I'll say. But
I can tell you why I have him that low.
Absolutely do so.
Because he is memorable, and he's actually really cool. He is paid by his boss to try and kill his boss.
Mm-hmm.
He has to do it within a very specific set of parameters. Basically, find someone to challenge him. But you can also tell he's very loyal to him, as is evidenced by the end. However, it's the end that's my problem that knocks him way down. He doesn't die, but he gets beaten like a complete punk. And that end scene is just so ridiculous.
It really is. And I also took points. I mean, that's why he ended up... he was pretty high on my list, but he didn't make it as high as I originally... because he was one of the first people that came to mind when I thought of Bond henchmen. So I assumed easily top 3 material. And it didn't end up that way. And a lot of that was because he didn't have a cool death. He didn't even have a cool ending at all. He had a lame ending that where it's like, oh, really? That's what you're going to do? That's just mean.
Yeah, so he went out like a punk. So, yeah, that's why he's my number 16. Now, what about yours, sir?
For my number 16, I'm going all the way back to the beginning again, all the way back to Dr. No. And
back to the past.
You're back! Marty! No, we're not going back to the future. We're going back to Dr. No. And I am choosing Miss Tarot.
I thought about her. I didn't include her, but I thought about her.
I was like, what am I getting? Am I going to get shock and awe, or am I going to get meh?
No, I want to hear more about this, but I can tell you right now, I'm not going to fault you for it because I thought about this too.
I liked her as a henchperson because she was doing her job. She basically is trying to lure Bond into an ambush, and then she's exceptionally surprised when he survives that ambush and actually shows up where she said she wanted to meet him. But then she runs with it. She rolls with it. She's like, okay, so
literally rolls with it.
I guess this is happening now. So ultimately, she didn't end up very high on my list because she did have kind of a lame ending as well. Basically Bond knew the entire time, and he's like, hey, I'm going to take what I can get here, and then I'm going to have you arrested. So she did lose some points for that. But I do give her credit for at least sticking to it when she found out, when she was shocked by his still being alive.
All right. I said I gave her some thought. I didn't ultimately put her on the list, but I understand. So not going to fault your reasoning at all.
All right.
So who do you have at number 15, sir?
Moving up to number 15 is the second trilogy or triplets or whatever you want to call it on my list. And this one's...
Is that triplets?
Yes, sort of. What I chose as my number 15 for the Henchmen's, kind of an interesting pick. I don't know if you might have considered them or not. We'll find out.
I can't even think of another set of triplets, so yeah, tell me.
It's the 3 Blofeld clones, or henchmen who have been made to look like Blofeld, that die at various points throughout Diamonds Are Forever. I chose them because, again, it's one of those memorable things where you see Like, oh, he's killed Blofeld. Oh, no, that was just his clone. Oh, he's killed Blofeld. Oh, no, just his clone. Oh, now there's another one. Oh, damn it, that's a clone too. Son of a bitch. It's a memorable piece of the movie. It adds to the ridiculousness factor of that film dramatically, which, of course, is that movie's stock in trade is just utter ridiculousness. And if you're going to go ridiculous, go all the way. And they definitely do that with the Blofeld lookalikes. So that's why I chose them as my number 15.
I understand. I didn't choose to go with that gimmick because I thought of them more as a gimmick. By the way, I only remember 2 of them being killed. The one in the mud bath and then the one at the White House.
Wasn't there 2 that ended up in mud in some way, shape, or form?
It was just the one guy in the mud bath.
I could have sworn. Let's see here.
No, wait, there were 2.
There's one that boiled the hot mud.
Yeah, I was only thinking of the guy who was in the hot mud. I didn't think about the one who was already done. So yeah, there were 3. You're right.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah.
Yeah,
but no.
I thought
so there were, but I
okay.
I still thought of it as a gimmick.
Yeah, that's why
Now,
I did only give them 1 spot for all 3 of them.
No, I understand. I'm not faulting you for it. Just I couldn't include them.
Okay.
And if we could have included all the gimmicks, I tell you, one of my top ones, and I'm not kidding, would have been Blofeld's cat.
Oh, I didn't even think about Blofeld's cat. If I'd have thought about it, it so would have been on this list.
No, because we discounted animals.
You discounted sharks and chickens specifically. There was no mention of cats, so... But I didn't go there, so it's all right.
Because Blofeld's cat is totally a henchman.
He calms Blofeld. He makes him able to do his dastardly deeds.
And in at least one alternate universe, the cat is actually the boss. But, no, didn't include that, but I understand. I get it. But with that said, my number 15 is a character who never spoke a word, and who, in fact, it's really easy to not know his name, but he is very effective in the scenes that he's in. And that would be Patrice from Skyfall. Which would, of course, be our silent assassin, whom Bond is first going after on the train when Moneypenny takes him out, and then whom he finds later in Shanghai and has the duel in the building with the jellyfish outside.
Yep.
And he's just methodical, effective, professional. He's just strong, silent, and cool.
Yep.
So I had to go with Patrice from Skyfall. He just really sticks out.
I can't fault you in any way, shape, or form for that pick, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a couple of minutes, probably.
All right.
So that brings us all the way up to number 14 already, huh?
It does.
Into the 14 spot. And for my number 14 spot, I had another character from the exceptionally racist but very fun movie, Live and Let Die. Not Die Another Day. Live and Let Die for sure this time. And it's another quiet character, although he did have some lines. It was just very hard to hear them because his voice was so quiet. He was such a soft-spoken gentleman. Big, scary, soft-spoken whisper. That's who I picked as for my spot.
I completely understand. I did not put him on the list. I thought about it. By the way, that was something we did not mention in our previous episode. They actually explained in the novel why he talks that way. It's because he's down to part of one lung left.
Yeah, they do actually point that out in the book. They kind of left that unsaid in the movie, which of course, with everything else being so different from the book as it was, why bother explaining that part? They're just, he's just this guy who doesn't talk very loud. Ultimately, that ends up being his downfall because he falls into a position that somebody could probably have easily had saved him had they only been able to hear his screams.
Yes, but instead he probably starved to death inside that couch.
So I liked him as a henchman. I thought he really had kind of that just pure henchman thing going. He didn't seem to have any aspirations above and beyond being a henchman. He is what he is. And, the fact that he did get kind of a cool death and that he did have some cool action, when he shoots the cab driver with the poison dart gun in the side mirror of the car. That's a cool little trick. And so I like things like that. And I went ahead and counted him then. So that's my pick, Mr. Whisper.
Right. And for my number 14, you're not going to like this at all.
Uh-oh.
Well, maybe you will. I don't know. With the way you've been going lately, maybe you'll love this. Uh-oh. I don't know.
What do you got? Lay it on me.
I wish she would. On me, though. No, mine, which I think tells you exactly who this is. My number 14 is the only reason I can stand at all to watch Die Another Day, and that would be Miranda Frost, played by Rosamund Pike.
Oh. See, I thought about including her, but I kind of grouped her in my mind as more of co-villain than hench person. So I didn't include her on my list. I'm not going to fault you for it, because I did, that was one that I kind of went back and forth on. I was like, it's just, So I ended up not including her, but I think she would have made it fairly high up had I included her. So I'm not going to fault you for that.
Because she's just a really well-written character in an otherwise crap-ass movie. Because you have her playing the double, as in the double agent. Because first you see her as someone who is definitely working for the bad guy, but then you find out, wait, she's working for British intelligence. But no, she is just playing British intelligence for the fools, and she plays Bond at his own game. Because it's not, oh, you've seduced me. It's, no, I'm seducing you, and I'm doing it on purpose to play you. And then as things go on, she's also very effective in combat. I think she gets a pretty decent death in the fencing scene, even though she loses to a lousy opponent in Jinx. But I just really thought that in this god-awful movie, the fact that she could stand out at all and not be brought down by everything around her speaks volumes for what Rosamund Pike was able to do with the character. And with the exception of kind of the lame-ass excuse we find out for how she got associated with Graves to begin with, basically he arranged for the Olympics to be thrown in her favor. But with that little detail aside, she just struck me as a really effective character. And okay, yeah, there's a bit of a crush factor involved, but still, just even objectively speaking, I think she deserves her place at number 14.
All right. Like I said, I'm not going to fault you at all. If I had chosen to put her on the list, I definitely would have had her definitely up here near the top half, if not even higher, possibly. So, yeah, she was a great character in an otherwise mediocre at best movie. So, I'll give you that one.
Now, my 13 and 12 are kind of a double act, even though they're not together. So I'm going to ask you for your 13 first.
Okay. Well, my 13 is actually one that we just talked about a moment ago, and that's Patrice from Skyfall. I agree with everything you said. Basically, he's a character, you don't hear him talk. He doesn't have any lines. He doesn't need any lines. You see that he is a professional who's doing what he's doing for his pay. He's contracted to do a job. He goes out and he does his job, and he's good at it. It's not his fault that Bond happened to be there to thwart him after the fact. I mean, he still got his job done. He just got beat up and thrown out of a building by Bond after the fact. So.
And a building with jellyfish being shown on the outside.
So I thought it was a great character, and one of the few people that I think we could even qualify as a hench person in the newer films. We don't.
Yeah, there weren't very many.
We don't really see a lot of that, but in the newer films, I think one of the few that we can go ahead and qualify as a hench person would be Patrice, and so that is why I chose him.
All right, excellent choice, as we've already discussed. Now, my number 13 is from everyone's favorite film. That's right, Honky. It's Live and Let Die. And I am picking Tee-Hee. Very effective henchman. Right up until the very end. And on the one hand, bum. He does kind of die a semi-lousy death, but it's after giving it a really good go. And he is played with major personality throughout. You can't fault him for that at all. In fact, he plays out so much better in the movie than he's written in the book. In the book, he shows up for just a scene or two and he's done.
Yeah.
And he's made even better because of Roger Moore's ad-lib line calling him Butterhook. But I really like the characterization of Tee-Hee. I like what the actor did for him. And you can absolutely picture him as being the menacing right-hand man Mr. Big and Kananga.
Oh, all right.
So my number 13 is Tee-Hee from Live and Let Die.
Can't disagree with any of your reasons. Tee-Hee is on my list as well, and we'll get up there. He actually has a spot of honor on my list, so we'll get there in just a little bit. You said you're number 12. I'm sorry, you said you had a package deal kind of going with your two picks here?
Yep, number 12, also from Live and Let Die, is the only hench person from that movie with even more personality than Tee-Hee.
Oh.
And that would be Baron Samedi.
Oh! We've done it again. We have a matching spot on the list. That is also my number 12.
That guy is just so cool. Just, if you're going to put a voodoo god into a James Bond movie that you were supposed to take seriously, this is how you do it.
Yep.
I mean, this guy is used so effectively, not just in his voodoo persona, but you also see him just, hanging out. And trivia for you, as we mentioned when we were discussing the movie, the gentleman who portrays him also did all of the dance choreography for the movie. That's actually his normal gig, is a choreographer. So I just thought this character was so well done, so well played, and just really, really cool. And he embodied the spirit that was supposed to be going with the movie, where this was the voodoo blaxploitation flick. And I also like at the very end where you see him sitting in front of the train laughing as the song kicks up again. Because then it's like, is he really a voodoo god?
It's like, wait a minute. We've seen this guy get, dead. Like, this guy should be dead a lot of times over, and yet here he is.
Yeah, because he gets what is supposed to be a awesome death of being thrown into a coffin full of poisonous snakes. So, yeah.
Yeah, I gave him points for a cool death, even though he comes back at the end. And unfortunately, they never go back to it. They never, he's there at the end, and then that's it. That's all we've ever heard of Baron Samedi, and chances are very unlikely that they'll ever go back and give us any more of him. But I don't think he'd fit into any other movies. It really was. It only fit because they were doing the whole voodoo thing. If they weren't doing that, it wouldn't have worked. But because they were incorporating that world, it was just such a perfect fit. And he played it so well, and the character was just so fantastic. So, yeah, I definitely concur wholeheartedly.
Woohoo!
So
now that we've mentioned our mutual number 12, who do you have at number 11?
Number 11 is one that you've previously mentioned, already lower on your list, but still on your list, so that's good news. And that is Rosa Klebb from Russia with Love. I thought she was a fantastic character. I enjoyed her scenes in the movie, and it was and we're talking about one of the better movies even too. So it's not even one of those ones where you're like, well, the movie was what it was, but this character was okay. No, she was a good character in a good movie, and I really liked her. So, and especially since she got to fight with Bond in that way, and I mean, come on. Dagger shoe.
Yes.
The only other thing you could possibly have to beat a dagger shoe would be a shark of some sort.
Dagger shark.
Dagger shark. All right. Shark skin dagger shoes. Oh, no, that would be mean. That's just cruel.
With zombie lasers.
Pew, pew, pew. No, but yeah, like you talked about, she's, very effective for the most part. Obviously, she can't be ultimately effective because, we all know Bond has to win. But still, great character and great portrayal of the character and dagger shoes. So that is my number 11.
All right. Now, my number 11 kind of surprised me with how high he ended up on the list. Because, after all, he is a frickin' pen clicker. On the other hand, despite his own claims that he is invincible, I had to pick Boris from GoldenEye. Yes, he may be the crappiest picker of passwords ever. Come on. These passwords are horrible.
You sit on it, but you cannot take it with you.
Chair? A 5-letter word in the clear? Are you kidding me? Even by mid-1990s standards, this is a crappy password. And yet, Alan Cumming just gives this guy so much character and such a hammed-up accent. This character has super personality. He completely fits who he's supposed to be in the time he's supposed to be in. Basically, the liberated Russian punk who is lucky to have escaped having been the age he is in the Soviet era and into now Russian free enterprise where he can totally be an American-style geek. And just, he's a fun character. And yeah, he's a pen clicker. Yeah, his passwords are stupid. But he's just got so much personality that I had to make Boris my choice at number 11 from GoldenEye.
Absolutely. I cannot fault you for that one in any way, shape, or form. And I cannot fault you for that choice at that position in any way, shape, or form, because I have Boris at number 10. So only one spot above you, just right there. I love Boris. He's a fun character. And I mean, obviously, I love GoldenEye. There will be at least one more character from GoldenEye on my list.
Yes, and we get to, once again, ask the eternal question. Did Eric put Xenia on a top?
We shall see. We shall see. We know she's in the top 10 because that's where we're at right now, and my top 10 is cracked with Boris. So what cracks your top 10?
My number 10 is a character whom is the essential prototype for what the major Bond henchman was ever going to be. Because really the ones in Dr. No were just kind of there, but in terms of setting a mold and setting an expectation, the first one that you really get is in From Russia with Love, Nash, played by Robert Shaw, the same man who had the boat that wasn't big enough in Jaws. But this is the start of the strong and for the early part of the film, silent, and then afterwards, at least very taciturn, badass big henchman. And at first he starts off protecting Bond because Bond has to do the mission for Spectre first, unwittingly. So he helps him out at the gypsy camp and so on. And then he takes over for the British station agent, therefore taking the name Nash, by which we know him, because we don't actually know what his name is. And he's just a very, very cool character. Very well done. And by later standards, he doesn't die as well as he could have. But considering that he's the show-off piece for why Q's gadgets are cool in this book, I mean, yeah, he has his own gadget used against him. But, you know, to set him up for that, we have the briefcase with the explosion and all that. And so I got to put Nash at number 10 from Russia with Love.
All right. I did not, I believe, include him. No, I did not.
Wow.
Now that I'm thinking about it, how did I miss that?
One of the signature characters in the entire Bond universe. I thought you were going to yell at me for having him at number 10.
Oh. Mike, yeah, I don't know. I just didn't. It didn't pop into my head.
Garrote Watch.
Yeah,
I'm cooler than Dagger Shoe.
I don't know if I'd go cooler than Dagger Shoe, but as cool as I could go with. Yeah, wow. I can't believe I didn't think of him. Like, it didn't even cross my mind when I was thinking. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, of course. But it didn't pop into my mind when I was originally compiling my list, and so I'm not sure what happened there. Oh no, what have I done? But that's all right. I got some other cool people on my list.
All right. Who do you have at number 9?
Number 9 is one that we've already talked about, and I mentioned that we'd be talking about a little bit later, and that is Mr. Stamper from Tomorrow Never Dies. I liked this character, especially in a movie where many of the characters were fairly forgettable. Even the main villain was not all that memorable. He stood out to me. Again, he fits the mold of the tall, blonde, mostly quiet type, but he was also the protege of Dr. Kaufman and was getting kind of heading that direction to be as cool as Dr. Kaufman was. So I gave him some extra points for that as well, and I think that's why he ended up as high on my list as he did. So for me, number 9 is Mr. Stamper.
I understand. I get it. I just thought he was too half-baked. There were too many things that you had to infer about him and things you don't actually know. Like, you never find out that the reason that he wanted to videotape everybody after the shipwreck wasn't for news footage. It was because he was into snuff films. You only find that out for behind-the-scenes notes. So and he was originally supposed to have gotten the impervious to pain thing that ended up showing up in the next movie, which is a lame trick anyway. But he just seemed half finished. But I understand, so I'm not going to beat you up for it. So, all right, that's your... Besides, I know you're not going to like my number 9.
Uh-oh.
I'm absolutely positive you're not going to like my number 9. In fact, you may question my judgment, sir.
Uh-oh.
Because my number 9 is Necros from The Living Daylights.
That guy bugs me. I don't know, but again, it's completely irrational. I'm not quite sure why.
Dude strangles people with a Walkman.
Maybe it's the Walkman.
How
Damn
cool
you, Walkman.
is that?
Yes, it is, but at the same, I don't know. Like I said,
He's
I can't
even
fault
good at
any
his
of
job.
your reasons. I can't fault any of your reasoning for why you like him, and I can't really make any sound judgments as to why I don't. I just know that I don't. So I won't question your judgment. I more question my own judgment. I just can't figure out why. So
I'm putting it to the same reason why. I mean, no, I didn't put him at the bottom of my list, but he was on my dishonorable mentions. It sounds to me kind of like how I feel about Milton Crest. I just want to slap him every time I see him. And I don't know why.
I don't know.
So I get it. But for me, Necros was he was effective. He was actually one of the henchmen who was good at his job. And he died in a decent fashion. And he didn't really go out like a punk. He went out at a fair fight, falling out the back of an airplane. And he killed almost basically anyone whose name wasn't Bond that he tried to kill before that. He did. His method of execution is fantastic, especially for 1987. Headphones from a Walkman, man. Headphones from a Walkman. That's playing The Pretenders. That's just cool.
Well, maybe that's the problem, because anybody who's ever actually inadvertently dropped their Walkman while their headphones were on know that those cables are not strong enough to choke somebody with. They would snap, and you would have to buy a new pair, and that's just false advertising. No, that's
well,
not
who's saying that he didn't have a special set made? They didn't have to be the factory included ones.
Okay, all right. Like I said, that's one of those ones it's just an irrational annoyance of mine, and I can't really explain it, but I understand if everybody else in the world disagrees with me. I'll get over it.
Fair enough. And while you're doing that, I'm going to go on to my number 8, who dies pretty much the same way, and that would be another epitome of the strong, silent, taciturn type. Basically, he took the Nash mold and improved on it to the point where you wouldn't believe that the guy who plays him normally is a Bollywood star and therefore doing song and dance numbers, and that would be Gobinda, played by Kabir Bedi from Octopussy. He is a badass. That's just all there is to it. He is a big, strong badass who crushes loaded dice in one hand and he brings the mean. And he brings the mean damn well. And he's good at what he does. And, okay, so he calls Louis Jourdan excellence, but I suppose that's part of his job. So, yeah, Gobinda from Octopussy, number 8.
All right. I can't fault any of your reasonings. Although I will say that Gobinda did not make my list. It just, besides the dice crushing, I didn't remember anything about him. Like, it just, nothing else really stood out that much to me, other than, I remember the dice crush. And I remember thinking, well, that's just ridiculous. Those dice aren't even hollow or anything. And it was obviously hollow. Like, that's what stuck out to me. It's like, I know how dice are actually made, and that's not possible no matter how strong you are, because the most you could do is to shape them. Anyways, we're not going to get into the science of it here. I'm just saying I didn't necessarily have him as high up. He definitely, no reason for him to be on a bottom list, but he didn't crack my list, mostly because I just didn't remember much about him other than the dice.
Fair enough.
So now we're getting into, I think, everybody on my list from here on forward, after this one, I think has been at least mentioned in conversation, if not in actual lists.
I will be surprised, because there's one person whose name has not come up at all, whom, if this person is not on your list, I will not only have to question your judgment, I will have to invite the audience to just have a contest for what to call you.
All right. Well, let's hope that one's the number 8 that I'm about to reveal.
And that is?
My number 8 is Oddjob from Goldfinger.
Okay, I don't have to have a context.
That's what I said. I was like, from this one, no, we haven't talked about Oddjob yet. Okay. Yes.
Come on. Dude has to be in the top 10.
Now, this is another one that I did come across several worst Bond henchman lists that included Oddjob. And I was like, what criteria are you basing this on? Oddjob is awesome. He's got 4 lines in the entire movie, and they're all, but you get different emotion out of every So,
yeah,
especially that last one.
He's one of those actors, and you've seen this. I mean, granted, basically it's because the role calls for it. Both Boris Karloff, when he's playing the Frankenstein monster, and Christopher Lee, when he's playing the mummy, they do the same thing. They don't get to talk, but just with their eyes and their facial expressions, they say it all. And, I mean, Harold Sakata, just those amused expressions.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Great character. Great gimmick with the weapon. Having the hat that can be thrown at great accuracy at great distances for very, very strong effect. Although it's interesting that when he throws it at the statue, it cuts the head clean off. When he throws it at a person, it just knocks him on the head and knocks him down. Yeah, they're dead.
Well, it could be that he's aiming the sharp edge, and then trying to hit him with another part of the hat. He may just be that damn good.
Yeah, I guess so. But he definitely did have a great, spectacular death, and practically at the hands of his own hat, but not directly. So that was awesome. So yes, he definitely is in my top 10 at number 8 is Oddjob.
By the way, your list so far has completely spoiled my theory that our top 3 are going to be the same.
Oops.
So, hey, I don't think this is too much of a spoiler.
At least we had 25 and 12,
Indeed. And number 6 on the bottom list.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's 3. That's 3 out of 2 lists. That actually isn't bad for us.
3 out of 2 ain't bad. No. So, my number 7 is a character I will not be surprised if you've totally forgotten. If you haven't forgotten, I will actually be really shocked. And that is from Thunderball, Fiona Volpe.
Thunderball.
You even forgot her on the Bond Girls list. She's the one who basically made up for Pussy Galore because she was the original Spectre hench person who was going after Bond and who said, "Oh, you think you seduced me? No, I seduced you. I am not one of these people who's just going to have a roll in the hay and just say, oh, I suddenly see everything clearly now." She gives almost that speech. So she's very clearly poking fun at the idea of what Pussy Galore did in Goldfinger. And she's a very effective femme fatale henchwoman. And her death, while not exactly glamorous, because she gets shot by another henchman, it's not her fault.
Is she the one that Bond actually uses as a human shield?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Now I remember who you're talking about. That was one of those moments I'm like, oh, did he really just do that? But hey.
That was the bang bang at the kiss kiss bang bang. After the first bang bang, but
but you are correct. She did not make my list. I didn't really think about her as a hench person in my mind. I guess I just always thought of her as a human shield. Like, oh yeah, she was the human shield. Okay.
And the stormtroopers in the audience are thinking, well, yeah, that's what we are, right?
Yeah. That's what it said.
And another stormtrooper is saying, well, yeah, because we shoot things we're not aiming at.
It tends to happen.
It does. So that is my number 007 spot.
All right. That's fair enough. Do we want to do your number 6 or my number 7?
My number 6 spot, much to your chagrin, is Xenia Onatopp.
Oh, all the way down at number 6. All right. At least it's still in your top 10. I'll give you that one.
Come on. Personality plus. Really, really into her job. Wow, is she into her job? They're going to derail us. Practically having an orgasm as she's machine gunning a whole bunch of innocent scientists. And of course, giving the Admiral a really happy death, I suppose. Happy ending. But not only that, you have the wonderful road race at the beginning. You have the nice exchange over cards. And really, her worst scene was her death, which I mean, it wasn't a punk death, but it wasn't really that great either. I was hoping for something better, but overall, still absolutely memorable, fabulous hench person. So my number 6 is Zedya Onatop from GoldenEye.
All right. Well, I will say that she's higher than number 6 on my list.
Shock!
But I'm glad that she's at least on your list and in your top 10. She was another one that I actually saw on quite a few of people's worst henchmen lists, and I was like, what?
I have a feeling I have a feeling those lists were written by Americans who are sexually repressed.
There you go. Very possible. Let's see. Did we do my 7? No, we didn't, did we? My number 7 is Tee-Hee from Live and Let Die.
You're right. We did not do your number 7.
That's all right. We'll do it now. My number. That's why I remember saying that he had a special place of honor on my list because he is my number 007. Tee-Hee from Live and Let Die. For all the reasons. I mean, it's just a great character. You've got a guy with a hook hand and a very strong one too. That's the best part about it is he's got the ultra strong super hook hand and. His death, while not being completely boring, wasn't that exciting either, but it was still kind of cool. So I gave him a couple extra points for that, but I like Tee-Hee as a henchman. I thought he did a fantastic job, and that's why he's all the way up there at number 7.
All right. And what about your number 6, sir?
My number 6 is one that you had a little bit further down on your list, and this is the probably the biggest difference besides the next one I'll talk about between our things so far, and that's at my number 6 I had Dario from License to Kill. And we're talking about a guy who was so bad he was kicked out of a gang. He was so mean, so evil that he was kicked out of a criminal organization for being too bad. Yes, they could have used him more, and yes, he's a character that, in theory, if they didn't kill him, he could have easily been a reoccurring baddie. But that's not the direction they chose to go with it. And of course, I'm sure at the time they had no idea that Del Toro would end up being the caliber of actor that he is now. So he may have been a little underutilized, but I still think it's a fantastic character, and so that is why my number 6 is Dario.
All right. Can't fault you for your reasoning. I think it's a bit high for an underutilized character, but I can't fault the reasoning, so I understand. So, do you want to crack your top 5 while you're at it, or should I take a turn?
I'll let you go ahead and do your 5, because when I announce my 5, you're going to yell at me. So let's do your 5 first. Well,
you might yell at me for my number 5 as well.
Okay.
I'm not, because this is the one that I thought when I was dropping a few hints suggested might be a little questionable on the list.
Okay.
And when I say dropping hints, that's as far as it went. Like I said, we revealed nothing. Because, this is one of those people who you have to play with the definition of hench person. And sometimes they went one way, sometimes they went another. And I figure as long as you're working for the bad guys and what you're doing is definitely for the bad guys, you're part of that organization, you're a hench person.
Okay.
Even if you don't necessarily know it. So you might agree with me, you might not. But if you agree with me, then bless your heart, because my number 5 is the only cool TV evangelist ever, Professor Joe Butcher, played by Wayne Newton in License to Kill.
I won't fault you for the choice, and I won't even disagree with your classification as hench person. Like you said, he's working for the bad guys. He may not know it, but he's not, actively, he's not a major villain. He's not. I think we'll go ahead and qualify him as a hench person. I didn't think of him as a hench person when compiling my list, so I did not put him on my list. But I very easily could have. If I had thought to qualify him as a hench person, I may have very well included him. I don't think he'd be as high as number 5. But
he's just so cool.
Well, yeah,
every time I think of License to Kill, he is one of the first things I think of. And it frightens me that I'm saying this about Wayne Newton, who previous to this, the only thing I could really think of him as was a guest star on Scooby-Doo and having done a remix of Suspicious Minds with the Legion of Doom. But it's just, Joe Butcher is just such a fun character. And Newton just plays him to the hilt. I mean, he out-Shatners Shatner on this character. And the character is just so well written into the bad guy's organization. I mean, he is absolutely necessary to the drug operation Sanchez runs. And he has no idea. And that's part of what makes him so cool, is he has no idea.
Yeah.
And yet, he's so effective.
Yeah, I definitely see that. And like I said, I definitely don't fault the choice. I still don't know if I'd put it that high, even if I had qualified him. But no, good choice. Good choice. Wayne Newton's always a good choice. So,
well, bless your heart. So who do you have at number 5?
My number 5 is a character that we talked about way back near the beginning of the episode. A character that you love to hate, and that is Zhao from Die Another Day. I actually like him as a henchperson. No, the movie's bad. Yes, all the characters are pretty bad. But I liked Zhao as a henchperson. He was fiercely loyal, even to the point of being willing to undergo this crazy, we're going to make you a white person surgery, gene therapy, whatever it is. Willing to walk around with diamonds embedded in his face for no real reason whatsoever. They never really did try to explain why. Because, I mean, they're obviously like right there at the surface, not like they're in the bone. You can see them still.
Yeah, I mean,
like they're right there.
We know how they got there, because he was there when the exploding briefcase full of diamonds exploded. Because exploding briefcases explode. That's why they're called exploding briefcases.
Otherwise, they'd just be briefcases. And who wants to take one of those? Nobody.
But come on, they've had cures for road rash for a long time.
I also like he did have a cool death. I mean, being stabbed with a diamond chandelier is always a cool way to go out if you've got to go.
And the Phantom of the Opera saying amateur.
And of course, you had mentioned the car chase. The fact that this is one of the very few times we've ever seen supercar versus supercar. And yes, it was mostly the car, but I thought he was a big part of that, as far as, being the guy to be like, oh, I'm going to jump behind the wheel and I'm going to chase this guy down and I'm going to shoot the rockets at him. And I liked him as a hench person, and for me, it was kind of a bright spot in this particular movie. So I have to question your judgment, and you may question mine, but my number 5 is Zhao.
Right up until you said bright spot, I was going to let you have it, but
I didn't say it was extremely bright. I just said in comparison to the rest of the movie.
If he's a bright spot in the movie and you couldn't even include Miranda Frost,
well, because I didn't qualify her as a hench person
all day, that's your call.
No, I just
mean, and I know that there are a lot. I mean, like we said, we try not to turn this into a crush contest, but if that's just yeah. So
that's not what I meant, but like I said, I didn't qualify Miranda Frost as a hench person. I thought of her more as a co-villain, so to speak. So, and of course, the same argument could almost be made for Zhao as well. But I thought he was more of a hench person.
We articulated co-villains, so.
Well, that's just what I thought. Anyways, so how about top 4? What do you got for number 4 there?
For number 4, a name you already mentioned, and I know it disgusts you to think of anything getting to this kind of position from this movie. However, come on, the parachute pants, the letter saying that she was the best lay Bond ever had, and just the total batshit insanity. I mean, that actually did, because it turned out that they didn't let him loose, put Christopher Walken to shame. That would be Fatima Blush, played by Barbara Carrera in Never Say Never Again. Wow. If you want the just absolute whack job hench person, here's your prototype. Just here you go.
Yes, absolutely. Well, like I said, it is hard for me to put anything from that movie very high on a list. I didn't not put her that high on the list because of the movie, though. I did include her as a hench person, and I weighed her on her own merits. And for me, the craziness didn't quite lift her above just making the list. But I'm not gonna fault you for it, because, like I said, the reasoning is definitely there. I mean, she is cray cray, and the fact that she wanted James Bond to write a letter saying that she was the best lay he'd ever had before killing him. I mean, that just
shooting him in the balls first, though, because remember, guess where the first one goes.
Yes. It speaks to a level of insanity far beyond things that we've seen previously. So,
and she had one of the best deaths ever.
Yes. Pen rocket.
Death by not perfected yet exploding pen. I mean, just. And she wasn't bad at her job. I mean, yes, she failed to kill Bond a couple of times, but, that's what henchmen do.
Yeah.
That's their job description, is to fail to kill 007. Because anyone who does succeed, well, then they become M's secretary. No. But she's just so crazy and so effectively crazy. And it's actually one of the most watchable things about the movie. In fact, to me, it is the most watchable thing about the movie that doesn't involve a fake video. So I had to put her at number 4.
All right. Like I said, I'm not going to fault you for that one. I am kind of surprised that it's that high, but not as it's not as huge a disparity as, like, say, my having Zhao at number 5 and you having him on your worst of list. So
or Necros.
Yeah, exactly. So this one's not that bad in comparison.
No, so who's next on your list?
My number 4 is one that you already broke. I couldn't have him any lower on the list because I had to keep him to the short list. And that, of course, is Knick Knack from The Man with the Golden Gun.
Ba-dum-bum.
Had to get one more short joke in there. Had to do it.
You just had to toss one in there.
I love Knick Knack. Just a great character. Like you said, it's so great that his job is not only to, help his boss kill other people, but to hire other people to try and kill his boss. And he's motivated to do this by the fact that Scaramanga has left everything to him. So if any of these people that he hires are successful, he gets everything. So not only but still, even with that, he's still fiercely loyal. He doesn't go outside of the rules of his engagement there with, as far as, okay, you can hire somebody to kill me, but it has to be, whatever the specific rules are, he always follows them. And so for me, that just makes him a great, great character. And of course, he's just cool. So Knick Knack, my number 4.
I understand your reasoning. I already went over why I had to put him a lot lower, but because he's low rider to begin with, but I do understand, so I'm not going to fault you for it. So now that we have cracked the short list, and now we're at the top 3, who is your number 3?
At number 3, another one that you've already talked about, and you seemed a little surprised that you even included him on your list at all, and I was surprised that it was as low as you did, and that is Dr. Kaufman from Tomorrow Never Dies. I really dug this character.
Up.
Yes, I really dug this character. Again, he's just the epitome of the cool bad guy. He's got that thing down where, he knows what he's there to do. He's there to do a job, but he's also not going to not enjoy it. He's found his joy. They say you find your joy and you'll never work another day in your life, right? Well, that's what his joy is, causing pain to and killing other human beings. Well, good for you, man. You found your calling, and he's exceptionally good at it until, of course, he meets Bond, which that's the downfall of most professional killers is they get in the way of Bond, and then guess what happens? But yes, for me, Dr. Kaufman was cool enough of a character to propel him all the way up to number 3 on my list.
I'm surprised, but I'll go with it. All right. Meanwhile, at my number 3, and I suppose now this isn't so much of a shock considering how low this character made it on your list, and that would be the character whom for many is the absolute quintessential hench person, aside from Darth Vader, because remember, he starts out as a hench person.
That's right.
Is Oddjob from Goldfinger. Yes, the man with the world's coolest hat.
Now, to be fair, he was only at my number 8, so it's not like he was way down on the list.
It's just my original prediction was that he was going to be in one of the top 3 spots for both of us.
Okay. All right.
And I expected you to yell at me for having him at number 3. But, yeah, he became one of the templates for what a henchman should be, along with Nash from Russia with Love. And as suggested before, Harold Sakata just does such a fantastic job playing a character who only has grunts for dialogue. And yet he says so much with his expressions, with his body language. He basically brings the badassery that Gert Froba can't as Goldfinger, because, of course, we know Goldfinger would never win a fair fight. Whereas Oddjob, yes, he can. even without the hat, yes, he can. And with the hat, that's just a whole nother level of awesome. And he gets cool death, so he meets that criteria. So just as one of the essential henchmen, not just in the Bond universe, but ever. Odd Job, number 3 from Goldfinger.
All right. How about moving on up to the top 2 spots? Who do you have at number 2?
At number 2, I have someone whom you just have no respect for because of that whole code of ethics thing. Yeah, so what? He turned against his boss. His boss basically had just gotten through saying he was going to kill him and his girlfriend when he was done. So, yeah, I'm not going to fault Jaws for telling Drax to go stick it. So, my number 2 is one of the most recognizable Hench-people ever in motion pictures, along with Odd Job, and that is Jaws, played with absolute memorability, not just because he's so frickin' tall, by Richard Kiel. Because Kiel, despite having no lines until the very last moment when he proposes a toast to his new girl, and they're not stuck in space, by the way. Remember, you saw that their capsule got jettisoned, and you heard on the radio that they got picked up. So they made it. But mostly it's just that expression with those teeth, and he just plays it with such great theatricality. And unless he is attacking Bond, he does everything he's supposed to do. He's damn near indestructible. In fact, we've proven he is indestructible. We had Jaws on Jaws action. He beat a frickin' shark at its own game. He bit the shark to death. How could you not give points for biting a shark to death?
Maybe it was because I love the shark so much. I was like, he lost points for killing a shark.
The shark is chicken.
All right. You've made your point. Like I said, it shocked myself when I was like looking at my list, and I'm like, that's how far down I have him. And like, I would have had to artificially move him up the list, which, I mean, it's my list. I can do what I want. I suppose I could have forced it up the list, but I was trying to stick to the criteria that I had set for myself. And, he did lose points because he didn't get a cool death because he didn't die. So he lost some points there. He did lose some points for turning, but I didn't take him off the list completely because he was still too cool for that, and because he had good reason to turn. He wasn't turning for money. He wasn't turning because somebody gave him a better offer. He was turning because, hey, my boss is going to kill me. I'm not part of it. He wants a master race, and I don't fit into that. So wait a minute. So I don't fault you for that at all, and like I said, I shocked myself that it was that low on my list.
I could not, in good conscience, not have Jaws in the top 3. So Jaws from The Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker. He was so cool that they had him come back. Makes my number 2.
So nice, they had to have him twice.
Now, this makes me really interested in your top 2, because if you did something odd, that means you left something very important off. And if you didn't, then you were just screwing with me before, and that wasn't cool. So, who do you have at number 2?
At number 2, I actually have a twofer. I included both of these characters into one.
You did it!
I just want okay, because I felt they went together. I didn't feel right separating them, especially since they would have had to have been, right on top of each other either way, which I'm sure they would have liked. But I went with Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd from Diamonds Are Forever. These two are just so much fun, wisecracking, making little jokes, and even to the point of you were talking about deleted scenes. There's a deleted scene in which they shoot a guy with the gun that first pops out the stick that says "bang" on the flag, and then shoots a real bullet. I mean, that's just great. And they have a fantastic death as well. So that is why they made my number 2, Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd from Diamonds Are Forever.
Well, I have to say, and I'm going to let you make the joke, so I'll reveal my number 1 first. And my number 1 is Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd from Diamonds Are Forever, just because they are so much awesome. They just have so much personality. They're fun. They're really good at their jobs. Again, who do they fail to kill? Bond. Well, that's part of the job description. They're supposed to fail to kill Bond, because I don't think M would want them for a co-secretary. And they just really go for the role with gusto. And I also like, and this is not a given in 1971, that you have a pair of obviously gay characters whom they don't turn into a caricature. They actually play it, pardon the phrase, straight up. And they're only as silly as the movie is. They don't play a parody.
Exactly. Yeah, they're not out of place in the movie. That's what makes it great. They fit into that movie. But they're just such great characters, and the way they go about their business is just fantastic. So,
and they're so wonderfully played. They're very creative about how they do what they do. I really like their dialogue exchanges. And I like how the actors portray them. In fact, there's a background story where during the filming of Diamonds Are Forever, a con job was kind of played on Sean Connery, and he actually thought that the two actors really were gay. And a few years later, on an airplane, he saw Putter Smith hitting on a woman, and he said, "You son of a bitch!"
They're like, you know that was a joke, right? I mean, that was just messing with you. All right. Well, I guess that only leaves one spot on the top of my list for us to really go over, isn't there?
Yeah, so I suppose we now have to find out who is on the top of your list now, don't we?
We do. And unlike the Bond Girl episode where Xenia was not on a top, on the henchman list, Xenia is most definitely on a top. I love everything about this character. The actress who plays her, the relish in which she does her job, the way in which she does her job, because, hey, if some bad guy is going to hire an assassin to kill me, please let them send Famke Jensen to squeeze me to death with their thighs. That, if it's got to be done, that's how I want it to go. I'd prefer not to die, yes. But, I mean, if they're hiring an assassin to kill me and my name's not James Bond, guess what? I'm probably going to end up dead, so I might as well go out with a smile. And even though her death was kind of lame, it was still kind of cool, too. And the fact that she did go out and give, in a way to give Bond the cheesy line she always did, like a good squeeze. Yes, it was a horrible, horrible, cheesy line, but still, GoldenEye holds that special place in my heart, and Xenia definitely holds a special place in my heart, as well as possibly other places. But we won't get into that. So yes, for this list, Xenia is on a top for sure. Woo! And there you have it, folks. That is our top 25 and bottom 007 henchmen. We definitely, like we said, this is probably one of the most subjective lists we've ever done, and all of our lists are fairly subjective to begin with. So please visit us on Facebook, facebook.com/HerMajesties or shoot us a mention on Twitter. We're at HerMajesties or just comment right on this episode at HerMajesties or shoot us over an email. I'm Eric at HerMajesties
And you can also email me at Ziggy at cinemaontherocks.com and find me on Twitter at CinemaOTR.
Yes, and once again, congratulations to our winner, Zach, out there in Longmont, Colorado. Thank you again for entering. Thanks to everybody who entered our contest. We'll have another one coming up sometime in the near future. We haven't planned it out yet, but we know that we had such fun with this one that we're definitely going to have more in the future. So thanks to everybody who entered, and congrats to our winner. And I think that's about it from me. You got anything else?
There is one thing, and this is what I thought you were teasing me with before. Because as I was going through the list and deciding who to include, not to include, there's one character I excluded, whom if I had chosen instead to include them, they would have been number one on the list immediately.
Okay.
And that would be Vesper Lind. But I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it.
I thought about it briefly. And if we were talking book henchmen, I probably would have included her. But in the movie, I think they gave her a little bit more redemption and turned her into something a little bit beyond a hench person.
That's where I went with it too.
So since we were talking movies, I wouldn't have included her. But if we were going strictly books, then I think she would have been fair game.
Yeah, but it's just, she was so multifaceted, I just couldn't do it. But if we had, she would have been number one.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. But I definitely agree also for not including her, because I do think that she kind of went beyond that role of hench person. So like, yeah, that's kind of how she started out, but she kind of became more than that. So
is there anyone you can think of out there who you would be interested in seeing playing a hench person?
Oh, there's a lot of good people that would probably make good hench people, but it's one of those things that I think it's better if it's an unknown, if it's somebody that hasn't become big yet. But if I did have to go with, it's tough because the people that I would think about would make good henchmen would probably make good villains too, and so it's kind of. I don't know. I'd really have to think about it, and I don't have anybody off the top of my head that I could immediately say, "Oh, this person needs to be a hench person." Actually, no. I take that back. I do have one person that might make a good hench person. Have you been watching Sherlock at all?
No.
Oh, the guy who plays Moriarty in the BBC Sherlock. I think he would make a great either co-villain or high-level hench person. He was great as Moriarty, but I'd love to see something like that as a subset to a master villain. It might be quite interesting.
All right. Person that comes to mind for me, he's somebody who a lot of the bigger action stars really love to work with, but who for some reason has not made it in terms of super mainstream, even though he's got the talent for it. I really hope that he does make it as far as larger roles mainstream at some point. But he has had supporting roles in Expendables 2, and he also has the lead role in the made-for-video Universal Soldier reboots by John Hyams, and that is Scott Adkins. And I can see he's got the big build, but he's also got massive fighting chops. And I can see him as a big, brutal henchman, but someone who also has a brain to go with it. And I can very much see him as a major domo ass kicker type.
All right. I'll have to check that out. I still haven't watched the Expendables movies. I watched about half of the first one and didn't really get into it, but I've been told they get better, so I'll have to check him out.
Yeah, he's definitely someone I would consider. And then, you're right, in a lot of aspects, you really are looking for somebody who isn't necessarily that well known. And I wouldn't mind seeing someone come out of left field either. Or even someone who is well known, but well known for other things, showing up as a hench person, perhaps even where we least expect it. Like, this just popped into my head. I have no idea why. I can't quite think of a role, but Helen Mirren would be fun. I don't know why. She just would.
Yeah. I could definitely see her. I would love to see her as the main villain. As a hench person, I don't know who would be above her. That would be the question. Like, who would be the lead villain if she was the hench person? It's kind of...
Well, that's something we'll actually be discussing in our next episode, because we decided to make this a 2-for set. So our very next episode, we're going to be doing our list of main villains in the 007 series. So, hey, May is villain month, apparently. So look forward to that in 2 weeks. But meanwhile, congratulations once again to Zach from Longmont, Colorado. And also thank you again to all of the entries in our Dial a Henchman contest. We really enjoyed reading the entries, and Absolutely. We hope that you will continue to listen and be there for our next contest whenever that happens. In the meantime, I am Ziggy Berkeley.
And I'm Eric Dewey.
And you have been listening to Her Majesty's Secret Podcast, only on the Fern.
This has been another great presentation by the 4-Eyed Radio Network. You can find more information at 4eyedradio.com.